150 millimeter railgun 1 blueprint, and we'll buy it. A small cap battery 1 blueprint, 100,000 ISK, and yep, buy it. Inertial stabilizers 1 blueprint, 54,380 ISK. Gonna buy that. Salvager 1 blueprint, 332,640 ISK. Yep, buy it. As a child, you may have read about Jane in a popular series of books used in school to teach children how to read. But the conventional happy image of her life painted in those stories was a lie. All grown up now, she has become a capsuleer with a chip on her shoulder and a commitment to follow 4 rules she calls her guiding stars. These are the adventures of Jane Honesty, and in this challenge, we shall see how and how far Jane can fly while staying true to her convictions. Shade, our valiant Velator, has served us well along the first leg of Jane's journey, but it's finally time to move on. Today, Jane completes her first major goal. She's ready to build herself a frigate. But which frigate to choose? Before diving in, I want to quickly send out a word of thanks to J. Senage 3432 and Michael Preston, aka Finian, who both left suggestions in the comments of last episode. Thank you both for playing along. With Jane's current skills, she can fly any of 9 Galente frigates. We're going to rule out the Navy frigates, not because we don't love a Navy frigate, but because any of those is going to be impossible for Jane to build right now. But I would say that it's not to rule out building one eventually. And that leaves us with 6 so-called T1 frigates. You can make a case for any of them, but as we look at the frigates that make up the Galente T1 set, I'm going to start by ruling out the Navitas. All of these bonuses for armor repairers just aren't where Jane is going. Similarly, I'm going to rule out the Imacus. Jane is going to need an exploration ship soon enough, but not yet. Let's take a look at the Maulus next. The Maulus is meant for electronic warfare, so it's bonused for remote sensor dampening. Now that doesn't interest us so much as long as we're hunting NPCs, but in its favor, if we look at its fitting and simulate it here, we can see that it's got an absolutely huge targeting range, 74.18 kilometers. And it's got a pretty quick align time, under 4, and with the right low slots and maybe rigs, it wouldn't be too hard to get it under the 2-second ideal align time. 6 targets and 4 drones. That makes it pretty tempting for doing really long-range kiting. So that could be a good choice. Next up, let's take a look at the Tristan. The Tristan got a recommendation with 3 upvotes in last episode's comments, thanks to it being the clear choice for drones, and it's already bonused 2 for tracking speed of the hybrid turrets, which means it can fit railguns and still have some decent tracking, making it a natural choice again for kiting fits. Then there's the Atron. The Atron received the other viewer recommendation, and the Atron is designed as a tackle ship, so it's bonused for propulsion jamming, which again doesn't really interest us too much as long as we're in the NPC hunting game. But it also has significant hybrid turret bonuses, both to range and damage, making it a pretty good choice for combat. And if we take a look at the fitting, it also can be fitted out with an under 2-second align time. Finally, the Incursus. The Incursus is just a tanky beast of a ship, clearly the way to go if we want to go with a brawling fit. Turn on the armor repairer, which is bonused at 7.5%, and then just open up the guns with the 5% damage bonus and let her rip. So, those are the main choices that Jane has been considering all week. Out of these four, though, we're going to rule out the Maulus and the Atron. So far, her experience with the Velator has leaned toward drones on one hand and brawling on the other. And because these frigates shine in those two areas, those are the final two. What it comes down to for Jane at this point is that if you notice, we've got 3 high power slots, which leaves 1 high power slot open for a utility slot. And that counts at the moment because we have to think, now that we're in frigates for the first time, about rigs. Any frigate that we get is going to allow us to put rigs on it, but to build those rigs, we're going to need salvage. And Jane is going to need a salvager, and it uses a high slot, and it just comes down to a matter of convenience to have that extra high slot rather than going back to station either to refit or reship. So, 1 Tristan blueprint, 2,825,000 ISK. And we're going to buy it. Jane names her new ship Sorrow, an homage to the legendary Prince Tristan, whose love doomed him to a tragic death. Sorrow is fitted out with 150mm rail guns, which when loaded with thorium throw their damage out to an optimal range of 13 kilometers and a fall off of 20 in the mid slots. They hold a 1 meganewton YTAC S8 compact afterburner, an X5 enduring stasis webifier, and a small cap battery 1. In the low slots, we have a small ITAC-A enduring armor repairer. We've got a Vortex compact magnetic field stabilizer that amplify the gun damage. So with thorium, we're doing a respectable almost 13 DPS per gun per second. And then a damage control 1 to give us just a little bit more padding, especially in the armor and in the structure. That is the current fit with what we had on hand and what Jane was able to pick up some blueprints for and make. Also, I should say, she's got hobgoblins all the way across, 3 spares and 5 to fly, and loaded antimatter. All that said, we still have plenty of room for improvement. There's an empty high slot, and now that we're in a frigate, we have rigs. So now for where this is going. Salvager 1 in this utility slot as the first priority, and once we get that, we can start collecting salvage to build a small auxiliary nano pump. That is to beef up the output of the armor repairer, a small low friction nozzle joint 1. If we swap out the field stabilizer with inertial stabilizers, gets us, let me turn off the afterburner, under 3 seconds for a line time. Finally, a small capacitor control circuit. Because if that is there in combination with the cap battery, then, if we turn off the non-combat utility thing, we can see that everything else in a fight can be running, and we are cap stable. So what better way to try out our new Tristan than to see if it can handle a Serpentis Refuge. The Serpentis Refuge is the next step up from a burrow, which we did last time in our Velator. And we come in and we're going to orbit that, turn on the afterburner, and the first thing we want to do is take out the missile battery with our drones. That's going to be the thing that's going to do the most damage that we can't avoid. Already our shields are, well, pretty much gone. Alright. Our drones with 5 of them now to do the work are doing quite a bit more damage than what we could do with just 2 in the Velator. I think I'm gonna have to move some things around here. I've got more drones than what fits. Let's see if we can just do compact and see if that collapse. Is that what it is now? No, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted either. Drones, get them back. Okay. Okay, let's do this one next. The battery. Keep fiddling around with this thing. 2, 3, 4, 5. Focus fire for what that's worth. Lock. Compact mode, that's what I wanted. Making pretty quick work of it. Let's see what's going on down there. Focus here. Got control range for the drones of 40 kilometers, targeting range of 46. And the guns, if anything comes close to us, have a fall-off range of 20 with the thorium in them. Looks like once we get out far enough away from that base, the missiles didn't hit us either. Never really did have to turn on the armor repairer. Wave. Haven't seen any destroyers yet. Generally you get a couple. Oh, they got me sensor dampened. Just have to trust the drones to do their own thing. They are all fighting. There we go. This wave. I don't like it up there in the middle. Maybe we can split the difference here. There's a destroyer. To fix my overview in a few other ways as well. Helps to tell them to attack. for this tab. A few other changes that I'll make too. The one change that I did make was having the radial and angular velocities columns there so we can see how fast things are moving relative to us. And that's the end of that. So not the fastest, but really completely doable. While Jane was out running the refuges, on the last run of the evening, we got an escalation to a Serpentis narcotic warehouse. A narcotic warehouse is a DED-rated 3 of 10 site that's got a guaranteed chance to drop several boxes of Overseer's personal effects that together are worth at least a couple million ISK. There's a good chance as well to find one or more Dead Space level modules. Those can be worth millions of ISK to sell them on the market. And we won't be selling them, of course, but if we get the right ones, we'll fit them to Sorrow or some other ship, because they'll be much better than anything we can make or find during our usual pirate hunting excursions. Notice that it's in a 0.4 low-sec system. Lots of players would pass an escalation by for being in a low sec out of fear for losing their ship, and that's fine, to each his or her own. But for Jane, as shiny and new as Sorrow is, the risk of loss is minimal. If we get blown up, we end up right back here in Nashi with our blueprint safe and sound, and we build ourselves another one. So with nothing to lose and everything to gain, are we going to pass this by? Not a chance. I'm Casparius. I want to say thank you again, especially to the folks who left a suggestion for Jane's frigate selection on last week's episode, and to those who upvoted those suggestions. Your engagement meant a lot to me. And I'm grateful during this week where in the US we're celebrating a day of Thanksgiving for everyone who's been watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. As always, I know there are 1,001 things you probably could be doing right now, but again, you chose to spend 20 minutes to play Eve Online with me. Thank you.